We are live at the Baltimore Whitman Coin Expo, and we have another very special guest with us today. He is the director of Numismatic Americana for Stack's Bowers Galleries. Would you please give a warm coin show welcome to John Kraljevich?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, good to see you.
Good
Wonderful.
To see you
Good to have you on.
Yeah.
So, John, you have recently gone from being your own boss to working for a new company. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did and
Sure.
And the transition?
So I started with Bowers and Morena Galleries in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, the predecessor firm of the modern Stack's Bowers Galleries, back in 2000. I was a kid, 22 years old, and I worked with Bowers and Morena, A&R, and then Stack's during a series of mergers and turnover and all that, all the way through 2007. I walked into Larry Stack's office in New York in 2007 and said, "Larry, the nature of our relationship's about to change. I'm going to start my own company." He said, "Great, see you Monday." "All right, boss, see you Monday." And I've always stuck around in the family cataloging as an independent contractor.
Okay.
So I did that for 17 years while running my own company. And recently I had the opportunity to kind of rejoin the team and become a full-time employee again. And at 46 years old, get health insurance, which is always a good
That's
thing.
always a
'cause
plus.
We're going to start falling apart here soon. And yeah, so it's a brand new position, which has me doing the exact same thing I've been doing for 25 years.
That's awesome.
Yep. So it works out.
I can't think of anybody better to handle an Americana section of an auction company than you, because you are the guy when it comes to.
That's the thing. It's so much that if anybody has a question about it, they're like, "Well, who do you?" Yes, Kraljevich. That's just it.
I bug John at least once a month with something strange that I come up with, and I'm like, "Hey,
I've bugged him a few times. He's very responsive, and he's actually really nice about it.
Yeah, no, I love being the narrow end of a funnel of numismatic weird stuff.
And he always tells me, every so often, he just tells me to throw it in a lake. Which,
that is sort of, the tagline when I get counterfeits, especially things that sort of recur and pop up and never disappear until they're really gone. Counterfeit slave tags, counterfeit
I
peace
saw
medals,
some of that.
Yeah.
I saw some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I tell you to pitch it in the lake, I really mean it.
Yeah.
Please put it under the desk. I don't ever want to see it or hear from it again. So yeah, that's exactly right.
So, what has Stack's Bowers got coming up in the hopper for the next couple of for the holiday season?
Sure. Well, so we do the official Whitman Expo auction, and of course, the best thing to come out of COVID, to my mind, was the fact that we don't have to go to auctions at coin shows anymore. Right. Because all of us, after a long day on the bourse, we're exhausted. We want to go have a steak and an old fashioned with our friends. We don't want to sit in an auction room until 2 in the morning. So now all the auctions are the following week. So the official Whitman auction is actually going to be held next week, based in our Griffin Studios galleries in Costa Mesa. So live on the internet, everybody can bid in their pajamas. We love that. And so next week we've got some really cool stuff coming up. For my stuff, for Numismatic Americana, which would include colonial coins, it's led by the newly discovered New England 3-pence, which up until the recent discovery of this specimen was unique, with the only one known in the Massachusetts Historical Society.
Ooh.
So no collector who's been alive since the Civil War has had an opportunity to buy one.
Ooh.
And now collectors can actually buy this coin and complete a series that before was literally
Impossible.
unable to be completed. Yeah. So this thing turned up in the Netherlands with a furniture dealer buying an old cabinet. And when he got into the cabinet, he found out that the rattle was a bunch of old coins.
I need to start getting into the cabinet business.
Right?
I don't know how many times I've heard that things fall out of cabinets.
Yeah.
And
Just
it's
used
happened for
furniture.
decades. Yeah. So I don't advise moving to Amsterdam, though. We'll never see you again.
That's true.
It's sort of heaven on earth.
Yeah.
So he had no idea what this thing was. It just says NE and a Roman numeral 3 on the back. It doesn't exactly tell you a whole lot if you're not familiar with them.
Yeah.
And it sat on his desk actually until COVID, and he was bored because no one was shopping for antique furniture, and he figured it out. And people sort of panned at first. That can't be real. There's only one of those.
Right.
And so we did all the tests and examined the Mass Historical Society specimen and metrology and fineness, and climbed underneath it. And it's real as can be. It's in a PCGS holder, and I suspect it will break the record for a piece of Massachusetts silver, which is currently $646,000. So I would expect this to bring 700 and up.
Is this something that going to experience, as they call, spirited bidding?
I think those will have spirited bidding.
I think
Yes.
so. The question is how many coins were found?
Interesting question. I don't know, and he doesn't either, because when he first found them, he just sold them.
Oh.
He just blew most of them
So
out.
now there are more of them out there, but they're going to be harder to find.
Well, no. So
No.
there were other coins in the cabinet aside from the NE3-pence, and he just sold them to kind of liquidate it because they were just standard issue old coins, like no big deal, who cares? But this piece he kept around because he didn't
But
know
it
what
was just one New England 3-pence.
Just one New England 3-pence.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is now unique in private hands. Only one person outside of a museum will have a chance to own it, and this is it. This is the only game in town. So you either buy this or you die without it.
Wow.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah, none whatsoever.
So that's a fun thing. We've got other really, really neat stuff. There's always wonderful medals in there. There's a great collection of territorial gold, including like a basically gem Baldwin 10, which a Baldwin Horseman 10 in Unk is a really neat coin. So there's a 70cc 20 that's a new finest known that'll sell for $1 million. There's some cool deals in this sale.
So your career has basically revolved around Exonumia and Americana.
That's right. Yes.
What would you consider to be like the most interesting piece you've ever handled?
Oh God, that's a long list, man.
No, I want the number one.
Number one's probably the gold Daniel Morgan at Cowpens medal. That is still the record for an American medal sold anywhere, auction or privately, that brought $960,000.
Wow.
That's something to be proud of.
A couple years ago. And it replaced the original Gold Commission Americana medal given to General Daniel Morgan for winning the Battle of Cowpens. That original medal was stolen and lost in the first bank robbery in the history of Pittsburgh. So it's somewhere in the muck underneath the Monongahela, which, trust me, I don't think you want to go looking for it.
I don't think so.
And so this guy spent, the nephew of Daniel Morgan spent the rest of his life trying to replace it. He wrote to Thomas Jefferson, and Jefferson's like, hey man, I'm retired, leave me alone, call somebody else. And eventually got a bill passed Congress to strike one of these to replace the one that was lost.
Wow.
And that piece hadn't been seen since like the 1890s. It turned up. And I got to catalog that. It made national news. I did an interview with the director of the National Park Service because they were interested in it. And it eventually sold for almost $1 million.
It took a literal act of Congress.
Literal act of Congress.
Which is not easy to do.
Yeah, literal act of Congress.
And then it shows up.
And then it turned up. And the thing is, it didn't just turn up. It was in the original box, and it was perfect.
Oh.
It didn't have a hairline on it. It was absolute gem. It's this big hunkin' piece of gold.
That's cool.
And the guy who bought it actually loaned it to the Museum of the American Revolution. So it's on display in Philadelphia now.
Oh,
That's good.
okay.
Well, that's the
probably
place
a cool
where it
thing.
belongs.
100%. Yeah, it's a great story. It's a neat piece. It's beautiful. So, but I mean, I've got 100 stories like that, man. Like, I mean, in
I know.
25
Sure.
years working for a big auction house, I've gotten to see everything.
But
you
the
know?
time is limited, so I would like
Yeah,
to
I got
cherry
you.
pick.
All right,
and,
fair enough.
You know,
Yep.
So, what is there like a boundary that you stay within, or is it just if it's old America, it's kind of what you do?
So typically the way I define what numismatic Americana is it's anything that's sort of round and metallic,
Okay.
that isn't a coin struck by the U.S. federal government that offers insight into American history. So that would include U.S. colonial coins, that would include tokens, that would include medals, that would include things like checks or fiscal paper.
So-called dollars.
This would include maybe, badges, political items.
Okay.
But it has to be somewhat numismatic. So
Sure.
token-ish, metal-ish, paper money-ish.
All the fringe stuff.
All the fringe stuff.
Yeah.
And-
Token-esque.
yeah, token-esque, exactly. And it's been fun making a career with this stuff because when I started, it was a total backwater. I mean, you had a handful of experts that really liked this stuff, but it wasn't super commercially viable. Most of it wasn't very valuable. I mean, I was working at Bowers & Moreno when the first ever medal sold for $100,000. That was a Thomas Jefferson Indian Peace Medal, still one of my favorite things. Now medals sell for that much all the time.
Yeah.
Some of that's inflation, obviously, but I think it actually is significant how much greater interest there is as people have gotten more into coins and realize this stuff is cooler, it's rarer, and it's a lot easier to brag about to your non-numismatic friends. If you buy a 93 S dollar, your buddies at Coin Club are going to love it.
Yeah.
But your
neighbor
aunts,
is not really going to care too
they don't
much.
care. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so why is it different from an 1881 S dollar? It's made at the same place 10 years later. Well, this one's rare. Okay, so. But if you tell them, like, hey, I have a dog tag that was worn by a guy that was killed at Antietam.
Yeah.
Now you got a story.
Yeah, and instead of being, $100,000, it's $900. Like, there's a lot of bang for the buck, and I tend to think that the reason we collect stuff, not because we're all mentally ill, but we probably
Well,
are.
we are.
We like
yeah.
stories.
Yes.
And numismatic Americana are things that start stories, and I love that because ultimately I'm a historian, and that means I'm a storyteller.
I am a storyteller as well,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how I, do my thing. I think it was what got me the job where I work now at Harlan Burke, which,
Yeah.
Harlan asked me, tell me a story. So
Love that.
It's really that kind of stuff, and I think that's the kind of stuff that people latch onto. It's, I think, interesting, though, that you have kind of expanded this area of numismatics, and yet you're still the only guy doing it. So
It's challenging. It's hard to do this.
you're
you know?
busting down a door, but nobody's following you.
They will. They're coming.
Okay.
Yeah, they're coming. I mean, I think a lot of the collectors follow the things that were really obscure backwaters.
Yeah.
That maybe it was me or two other people that cared. Now there's 8 or 10 or 12.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
and that's actually pretty good growth.
it is. It's very good growth, and it's trending the right direction. Like
Yeah.
more and more people are interested all the time. And I think for a lot of coin dealers, there is a risk aversion that comes from a feeling that they don't really know what the stuff is. So it takes years to get comfortable and kind of grow your own spine that I can write a check for $10,000 and know what this is and know someone wants it, that maybe your typical coin shop guy or your typical dealership just doesn't have the client base for it.
And it is amazing the things that turn up in coin stores. I've bought some just super neat things over the years, just
Yeah.
through the door
Yep.
with no warning whatsoever.
That's right.
And it's just amazing that, and I'm sure every coin shop's the same way. Every once in a while, something comes in the door that's perfectly up your alley,
Yep.
and it's so strange to see how much of that stuff's still floating around.
Yeah, a lot of it.
I know.
Because, you know, when Grandpa died and he had, you know, silver dollars and a bunch of tokens, it was real easy to sell the silver dollars 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago. But the box of Civil War tokens, I don't know, those
Yeah.
don't look really good.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
now they are.
They
and,
are,
And so
yeah.
this stuff continues to come out of the woodwork, sometimes from places where the coins have already been gone. You know,
Okay.
so it's a maturing market, and there's constant new supply because there's a crossover appeal here. Maybe that Civil War dog tag that I consider numismatic Americana has been floating around in a militaria collectible space. You know, and I know you're involved in that space
Yep.
too, and you know how much crossover there is here.
Quite a bit.
just,
Quite a
yes.
bit, you know.
and just with the young age of our country, it's going to limit the number of the stuff. So the stuff
That's
is exploding right now with
That's
what
true.
is there and what is current and what's going to be available. So
But the nice thing is, history doesn't have to mean old.
Right.
We're living in historic times right now.
Yes, we are.
You know, I mean, undoubtedly. So if you look at things from our lifetimes, there are collectible numismatic Americana that's 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old. Like, for instance, I like the history of American music.
Okay.
And I have a jukebox token from a bar in Chicago that was the second bar ever to play what's called house music, techno music, you know, right? And so this jukebox token represents the moments that they switched from an old school jukebox
Yep.
to a DJ with
to a
turntables.
DJ.
That's funny.
That's a historic moment
That
in the history
is.
of American music, and that's something that I paid $7 for. That to me represents a really cool inflection point in the
Yeah.
history of American popular culture.
No, that's actually it's really
It's neat,
interesting.
you know,
Yeah,
right?
so there we live through historic times and we just maybe take them for granted or don't notice them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So and honestly, history isn't so much it's storytelling, but it's also a perspective on events and people and culture and community. And you can have a historical perspective on any era and find the sort of material culture, the things that people collect that relate to that era and help explain it and all of that. So if you're into the history of, I don't know, 60s counterculture, if you're into the history of World War II or the history of baseball, you can find numismatic Americana that relates to anything. And I love that about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's totally scalable, and whatever your interest is, there's something for you at your price
There's
point.
a niche for everybody.
100%. Yep, absolutely right.
I know a guy that collects plastic water bottles.
That's dumb.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's
Well,
dumb.
it just shows how
what I'm
damaged
saying
we
is-
all are.
No, but
We're all screwed
what
up.
I'm saying is there is a collector for literally everything.
So I've always said that in 100 years, the collection that no one will be able to form, that might actually be interesting for a museum curator or something, is the history of American pizza boxes.
Love it.
We-
I
there
love
you
that.
go.
We all have memories from our childhood
Yes,
of
we
the
do.
pizza box from our local pizzeria,
Yes,
or
we
when
do.
Domino's went to the 8-sided. Nobody saved this stuff. And that's the neat thing about numismatic Americana is stuff that was sort of throwaway, disposable, and interesting now becomes sort of historic and scarce and unusual and lends an ability to interpret a period of time just like a 1984 Domino's pizza box might.
Except less biodegradable.
Yeah, and you know, that smell of old grease. I'm
Well,
Italian,
you know.
so I can talk about the smell of old grease. It doesn't smell grease, you know. So I would recommend tokens and medals over pizza boxes
Yes.
for most people. Easier to store too.
So if you gather anything from our conversation today, tokens and medals over pizza boxes.
Yeah, it's just-
100%.
Every day.
but somebody's collecting them, I guarantee you.
I'll guarantee
somebody
it.
somewhere.
Nope,
So,
I'm with
yeah.
you. We collected beer cans when I was a kid.
I remember my brother had a beer can
Yeah,
collection.
That
Absolutely.
was the big thing.
There's a lot of guys that collect old bottles. They go into the history of the bottle, the company, where it came from, where it was
So
made.
that's one neat thing about tokens and medals. Like if you collect bottles, like collecting Morgan dollars isn't going to do anything for you. But if
Right.
you collect bottles, you might be able to find tokens from those
Like
companies that made the bottles.
The Hawks Panacea.
Bingo, exactly, stuff like that.
I've had
So-
one of each sit next to each other, and it's a super cool display.
And that's neat. And it makes the bottle more interesting. It makes the coin more interesting to have the bottle. And
Yep.
if you collect with this sort of curatorial mindset that you're not collecting coins and filling in holes and I want one of everything, but that you're collecting material culture like a curator, you gather these items, they kind of magnify each other's
Yes,
consequence.
exactly.
You know, so, you know, like I said, like baseball, you know, if you collect baseball cards or something and you find that 1941 Chicago Cubs pocket calendar that looks like a medal, like that makes your cards more interesting.
Yes.
Your cards make that more interesting. So
Yeah.
whatever your interest, and especially if you have non-numismatic interests, numismatic Americana kind of help dovetail those interests together in many ways.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so sell the Morgan dollars. Go buy medals. Go buy medals. Buy them from me. StacksBowers.com. Look for
So
me.
yeah, so if somebody has something that they truly can't figure out, is there a way of being able to maybe utilize your talents?
Yes, for sure. So we all have these magical things in our pockets that allow us to send pictures.
They're amazing.
My least favorite thing about this business, I'm sure you've both been there, is when someone calls up and says, I have this thing, and it's round, and it's brown, and it has these words on it. It's like,
What do you pay
man,
me for it?
Can I see it?
Just send me a picture, man. Like, I mean, we've all said hold it closer to the phone, you know, to a customer at some point. But yeah, take a picture. You don't need to explain it to me. I can probably read your picture. At this point, after 25 years of doing this full time, I've kind of seen almost everything, or I'm pretty resourceful and can figure it out.
Yeah. And if you haven't, that's gonna start another process.
For
and
sure.
That's even better.
Yeah, so you've given me a chore. I don't mind that. I'm a researcher. I like chores. But yeah, get a hold of me. I'm usually pretty responsive about, you know, answering questions.
Very much so.
If your first question is what it's worth, I'll probably send you elsewhere to do that homework. Appraisals cost money.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, if you've got something, especially if you're a professional, if you're a coin dealer and you've got that box of stuff in the back safe that you've never touched because you're scared to death you're going to sell it for less than what it's worth, that's why someone like me at an auction house helps, because guess what? When you make money, we make money.
Yeah, that's right.
And every coin dealer on the planet's got that box in their safe of stuff that I bought, and I know it's cool, but I don't know what it's worth.
Right.
I know what it's worth.
Yeah. There you go.
So come find me. Track me down. Send me pictures.
You can
I'll
find
send you a
him
contract.
at basically all the major conventions.
All the big shows. Yep.
Email. I'm sure. Do you have an email address that works?
Yeah, JK at stacksbowers.com is the best.
That's easy.
Yeah, that's the, you know, when you've got a last name like Kraljevich, you don't put it in
I
your
do,
email. Yeah,
so I know.
You know.
Yes.
So JK at stacksbowers.com. But yeah, I'm at all the big shows, and I'm actually local here, more or less to Baltimore. I live in the Washington D.C. area
okay.
now.
Perfect.
So I'm easy to find.
There
Well,
you go.
John, we really appreciate you coming by and
I'm
sharing some of
delighted.
your stories with us.
Yeah.
We are storytellers, so it's like anytime you want to come on, anytime you got something to plug, please let us know.
I'm in,
'cause,
man.
We're happy to do it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thanks for coming by.
All right, thanks guys. Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
invite. Yep, enjoy.